All right. Welcome everyone to the Magpie Creampie Show. Obviously, let me turn this around. Welcome everyone. Obviously, talking about Newcastle United and all that sort of stuff. Um, obviously, I am doing a show like literally about 30 minutes later on the Copa del Rey, but today's this stream is all about Newcastle United and basically everything at the football club. Obviously, the last time I was on here, we lost to Crystal Palace. Now, obviously, that's been like 5, 6 days now since that game, and we do have a game tomorrow. I literally didn't even know we are playing tomorrow. I thought we were playing like Sunday, but that kind of tells you just how everything is with our season. And obviously, before we get started, if anyone wants to join, I do have the link of the stream if anyone wants to join for the it might go for about 15, 20, 30 minutes at most. Obviously, I will be doing a show immediately after this. But yeah, in terms of like everything that's happening with Newcastle at the moment, I mean, obviously, I would probably say the one thing that is happening at the moment is probably the the transfer speculation. Now, I did do a bit of like a show with Liam from the Bayern View because Bayern Munich are linked to Anthony Gordon. Now, my overall thoughts on the deal. Obviously, you guys can check out the video on Liam's channel, the stream that we did, and I basically said like, look, for Bayern Munich, I think he would be a perfect fit for them, and I think, in my opinion, I think Anthony Gordon is, in my opinion, done. I guess I wouldn't say I rate him that high, but I think now it's the time to cash in on someone like an Anthony Gordon because look, he's coming off his best ever European season, obviously, with like 10, 11, 10 goals or something. And also, you know, when you look at that, that should be a good indicator for any Champions League club. And I think probably that he might well go, I'll be honest. And I'm fine with him going, I'll be honest. Like, he's one of those players I'm fine with letting go for a good amount. How much is he worth? Well, we bought him for £40 million, I remember, more or less. I'll probably say he's like a fifth. I'll say 65, just because he's English or something like that. But yeah, I just think that Anthony Gordon, by the end of the season, in my opinion, I think will leave. Which, as I said, I don't really mind. Obviously, you can check out more on my thoughts on Anthony Gordon on Liam's stream that I did with him the other day. Another bit of news, obviously. Well, actually, still more transfer speculation. Newcastle United, I remember seeing somewhere about Sandro Tonali. Could he go by the end of the season? In my opinion, I hope he doesn't. I know there are some people that say like, oh, I'm okay with letting Sandro Tonali go. Then who are you going to attract that has that sort of similar quality of a Tonali? Not well. There are a lot of players like that, but we brought Tonali in when Tonali, well, actually when we were in the Champions League. So there was something to look forward to at Newcastle. We offered Champions League football or whatever. But in my opinion, I would say unless there's a good offer for him, you have to keep Sandro Tonali. I think he is still a fundamental piece in the sort of, you could say, project at the club. I would be okay with letting go of someone like a Tino Livramento it seems at the moment Man City, even though I saw he might not actually end up going. So when you think about it, like there are basically four players that there's been more discussed. That was Tonali, Gordon, Bruno G, and Livramento. In order of who I prefer letting go and keeping, I'm fine with letting Anthony Gordon go. Okay. Tino Livramento, I think we can still attract a player that has similar-ish quality to him. So I think I'll be fine with letting him go. As for the other two, Bruno and Tonali, I would say you have to keep both because I think our midfield is way better when both of them are playing. Oh, but we haven't done well this season. Well, I would probably say Tonali's best performances have been actually when Bruno's not on the team, and Bruno's best performances are when he's playing. You know, um, he's been out, Bruno, for like 2 months or so or whatever. He might return for the game tomorrow. To be honest, I don't really bother with it because like why should I trust the medical staff at Newcastle? But obviously, if he is back, then maybe that might be a boost. Not saying that we're going to win the game. I'll be honest. As for the other sort of stuff that is um, around the club, obviously, some people have seeing reports of PIF, the Public Investment Fund, selling shares in Al Hilal, selling shares from Live Golf, and all those sort of stuff. Will that affect Newcastle? In my opinion, no. Because one, like you already put yourselves in this position of owning a Premier League club, basically. Whether they want to actually make us champions of England or whatever, or champions of Europe, or who knows, maybe in a few years, world champions like Chelsea, then eventually we have to develop the club itself from within, but also outwards. Obviously, last week I talked more about the sponsorship stuff, like the training ground, got the sponsor for next season and all that. I don't know about the stadium at the moment, but uh, I guess off the pitch is okay. But when you look at the team itself, like building the team for, as they said, we are going to compete for the Premier League title in 4 years. So in 4 years, I'm going to base the trajectory of the club from now till 4 years from now, where the 29-20-30 season. So by the summer of 2030, I have to have seen Newcastle be close to a title charge. I'm not saying that we should win the Prem. And big up to Vinny. Hope you're doing well. I'm guessing it's the Vinny that I know from one of the truest gooners that we all know. But yeah, but in my opinion, I think I forgot what I was saying. So basically, what I'm saying is by 2030, so in 4 years, I expect. I am not predicting. I am not whatever. I expect us to be competing for a Premier League title. That's what the CEO said. So I'm going to, back what he's saying. Let's see if that's the case. And 4 years, in my opinion, does feel like a long time. But 4 years, when you look at, let's say 4 years ago, we were coming off of a pretty good end of the season at Newcastle. I'm talking about 4 years ago. So that is the summer of 2022, more or less. We just signed Alexander Isaac Koch. We signed Botman, and obviously just before that we signed Bruno, we signed Dan Burn, we signed all these sort of players. And obviously since then it's been we've won a trophy. That's at least the main concern I wanted at the club these past 4 years. But now obviously it's about what the club wants, and the club wants us to be competing for Premier League titles. So that's the expectation I'm putting on the club, because if we are not competing for a Premier League title by 2030, then the ownership has failed. I don't care if like a Man City, a Liverpool, and Arsenal, or whoever else in the Premier League is also improving, but when the owners say, the CEO and everyone like that, they said that we will be competing by 2030 for the top honors in English football and all that sort of stuff, then I'm expecting that. In 4 years, I should be like on different panel shows talking about how fantastic Newcastle's 7-game winning run is, that sort of thing. Or like 12, 13, 15-game winning streak whereby we are like 15 points clear of second place. In 4 years, I'm to be honest, I should be expecting that. If the CEO is saying that, I'm going to, hold them accountable. So obviously, I cannot judge them today, but in 4 years, they cannot be changing the statement. Oh, yeah, we said we're going to compete for the Premier League title, but we're just going to compete for top four as we usually have done. Okay, good. But I if you said that we're going to be competing for Premier Leagues, you have to. What's the plan to get there? Now, obviously, everyone has different opinions, and obviously, I will be talking about a certain manager in charge of the football club. I've done a few shows and panel shows, whatever you want to call it, trying to give like a pretty decent view of the club, I would say. Because I ain't like most other fans. Well, to be honest, I know some people kind of hate me. I don't really care, but I would probably say that like because obviously this past week you guys saw almost everyone saw reports that Jose Mourinho and another one being who do you call this Roberto Mancini are linked to potentially getting the Newcastle job if Eddie Howe was to leave. And obviously, Eddie Howe did his press conference earlier today ahead of the game tomorrow. But what I will say about those sort of reports, okay, let's say right now Jose Mourinho, because it was from Ben Jacobs, who I believe is a pretty good, credible source. What do I think of Jose? I love Jose. Now, I know people will say he's washed like a car. But he's actually doing it. No, I wouldn't say fantastic at Benfica, but he's doing at least better than what they were with their previous manager at Benfica. So look, and obviously we know him at this time at Chelsea, the 2 times he's managed them, United, Spurs. So I think those are the only 3 clubs. Yeah, he's had success at Chelsea both times. Had a successful first season at United, and then obviously, at Spurs they sacked him before Cup final, which I think I wouldn't say they win it, but you gotta give him a chance. But yeah, I think overall, is Jose the guy? Now, in my opinion, where do people see Jose right now? People say he should be like manager of like who's bottom of the Wolverhampton one. People are thinking, oh, he should be like his standard. Jose is Wolverhampton Wanderers, Burnley. Like no, I still think Mourinho is still. I wouldn't say he's like the top 5 best managers today, but there is a proven track record at clubs that he has delivered success. Now, obviously, the most recent ones, Tottenham, Fenerbahce, and it seems like Benfica's not going to win a trophy. So then technically he's not going to win a trophy at 3 different clubs. What makes you think he's going to do at Newcastle? Well, for some reason, Newcastle, we're always a cup team. Look how far we go in the Carabao Cup now. That's like our Champions League, more or less, Like, do we have? For some reason, I feel like we have heritage in the Carabao Cup now, but hey, at least we have a trophy in our cabinet more recently than most other clubs. But then you look at FA Cup, we haven't actually made it to Wembley. We haven't actually made the semi-finals of the FA Cup since I think the early mid-2000s under Sir Bobby. Obviously, the last time we were in the final was '99. Which was less than a year after I was born, so I can't really say I remember. But what I will say is that Jose, if you only want to explicitly look at his time in the Premier League, and the best example is Tottenham because that's the most recent one. Now, there was, if you guys remember during COVID, remember when Spurs beat Man United 6-1? I believe Jose was manager. I'm not mistaken. He beat Man United at Old Trafford 6-1. Now, of course, there's no fans and whatever. But I remember there was a time Spurs were top of the league. I know Southampton were also top of the league at one point, but you get what I mean. So in his most recent job, I would probably say Jose still has done okay at Spurs. Big up to Jordan. Hope you're doing well. I forgot who's Liverpool play. I think you played Chelsea. I might be wrong. To be honest, I really do not remember the other clubs. I just know it's the Arsenal City and Newcastle Bournemouth. I don't remember who else is playing whom. But yeah, back on Jose, what he's done at Spurs. When you think about it, what if, let's say, do I think our owners are better than the Tottenham Hotspur owners? Yes. Which means that we could potentially be backing Jose in the summer. Because if we're going to sell, my preference would be Gordon and Livramento. We sell those players, we get rid of other players off the wages, whatever, and we bring players in that Jose wants. And I'll be honest, I think, okay, we're not going to get like the Kylian Mbappe and whatever those sort of signings, but we can get players that were like a Bruno G, Sandro Tonali. I know at the time, Alexander Isaac Koch, before he became Alexander Isaac Koch. But, those sort of players, like we shouldn't be aiming for like Mbappe, or at least not his brother as well. But we should be, I think, getting, it's the derby. Ooh, I'm going to say I am not sure how Liverpool will be. I would say Everton win. That'll be my prediction. But we never know. And for the first time, I'm guessing big up to Michael TV. How do you say thank you in Dutch? Dankeschön. I think that's German, but it sounds like it. And big up to Dantrum as well. But yeah, as I said, and anyone that's joining, please do hit the like button and subscribe. If anyone wants to know what is the name of this show, it is the Magpie Creampie Show. The best named Newcastle United show of all time, I would say. But as I was saying about Jose, I'll be honest, I'm fine with getting Jose in. Do I think he's a long-term person? No. But if you want players that be like, ooh, I love the name Jose Mourinho. Like imagine you get a phone call. You get a phone call. And then on the other side, it's Jose. And you're like, ooh, okay. I might orgasm. That sort of thing. And not all players are going to have an orgasm when Jose is on the phone. But compare that to Eddie Howe. You get on the phone, your player, like a pretty decent, good player from abroad, and you hear the voice of Eddie Howe, and you're like, you're sleeping, you're sleeping. Now, not every player will be like that. Not every player sleeps when the manager's on the phone. But obviously, when you hear the name Jose and hear the name Eddie, I mean, in my opinion, what do most footballers have an orgasm with? They probably have an orgasm when they hear Jose's on the phone. Ooh, Jose. Yes, Jose. Talk to me. Don't talk to me dirty. Talk to me on the training pitch. Because he can bring in some good players, I would say. Yeah, it might disconnect, but with the PIF, maybe they'll be able to reconnect the phone to the player and all that sort of stuff. But you know what I mean when I say, most players would actually, not all players will have an orgasm hearing Jose on the phone, but there could be players that might be like, I want to join Jose's Newcastle, and obviously Jose Mourinho has always talked about Newcastle as like one of his favorite clubs that he's never managed, and people are always like, when can it happen? Well, obviously there's not going to be all that long, But if there's a time, this might be a good time. Now, would I say Jose Mourinho is my number one pick? No. Is he top 5? He's around there, top 5. If I'll say 5 names that I would be more than happy to let go of Eddie Howe and bring in this manager. I am not going to say Ancelotti, Luis Enrique. I'm not going to say those managers. Here are the managers, and I think they're all realistic managers. One, my number. Should I start from bottom to top, or do you guys prefer being on top? No pause, but I'll start from the bottom. That's where most people prefer it. I would say like a Jose, but I would say a good one would be someone like, what's the guy at Stuttgart? Sebastian Hoeneß. I don't know if that's the right way of pronouncing it, but Sebastian Hoeneß at Stuttgart. Look what he's done with Stuttgart. Even in his off-season, he still wins a DFB Pokal. And that was with Nick Woltemade in the team, by the way. And we'll find out by, 7 days from now or wherever, Stuttgart are in the semi-final. And they could actually reach the final again of the DFB Pokal, playing either Leverkusen or Bayern. Obviously, they have to go against Freiburg, who are in the Europa League as well. So he's actually had pretty good experience, Sebastian Hoeneß. Now, he didn't do that well in the Champions League, got eliminated in the league phase with Stuttgart. But for a club like, I wouldn't say Stuttgart or a small club, they're not. I'll be honest, I would class Stuttgart similar to a Newcastle United. I don't think that's a bad comparison. Newcastle, Stuttgart. I think we're, in terms of like in German football and English football, I think we're similar. That sort of thing. So that might be a case. The next one, that's 5. Number 4. Now, I am not 2,000% sure, but could Cesc Fabregas join? Now, I'll be honest, my stance on Cesc is he's only had 1 season with Como. No European football. Well, I mean, we're not going to have European football, so maybe actually it works out for him. Exactly. I would say he's done a lot better at Sebastian Hoeneß at Stuttgart. I would take him. I think he would be a good manager. I was talking about Cesc. He's doing really well at Como, but the only thing I am always going to be suspicious now of Cesc and Como itself is how they're going to do in the Champions League. How are they going to deal with 2 games a week? Eddie Howe can't deal with it. You see at the 2 years ago and this season how bad we've been in the Premier League. Kind of tells you Eddie Howe's not fit for purpose for 2 games a week, but he's perfect for 1 game a week. And even then, we were bad in the first half of last season. Before we obviously went on to winning a trophy. But Cesc, I would say, I want to see if he actually does win the Coppa Italia, because they're in it and they're up against Inter. And then if they were to make the final, it's either Lazio or Atalanta. If Cesc Fabregas wins the Coppa Italia, you know what? I can back him. Coming to Newcastle. Reason why I would put him above Hoeneß is just because most when you get on the phone, you're like, who's this? It's Cesc Fabregas? Ooh, not all players, but most players would get an orgasm. Whereas Sebastian Hoeneß, you're like, who? That sort of thing. But and that's already the slander name for Sebastian Hoeneß if he doesn't come to Newcastle. That would be fun if a rival club gets Sebastian Hoeneß and he does bad. Now, obviously, if he joins us, I don't want to give the slander, but um, and then number three on the list. When you think about it, can it work out? I'm not a big fan overall, but it could work. Oliver Glasner, currently at Crystal Palace. Palace Conference League semi-final, could win it. I don't. Well, I predicted them to win it at the start. Conference League semis. Last season won the FA Cup, so he's won the trophy in English football. He won the Europa League with Frankfurt 4 years ago. Did really well with Frankfurt before going to Palace eventually. So, and everyone knows about Glasner because obviously he's been manager of Palace. But the only thing is that can he do it with a bigger club? Okay. Crystal Palace and Newcastle, there's a level. There is a level. Like Crystal Palace only won one trophy their entire history. Okay, I know they might win two by the end of the season, have two trophies, but Newcastle still has more than them. So there's levels. And the one thing that I saw him complaining about Glasner is the what do you call this? The money stuff, the transfers and all that sort of stuff. If he comes to Newcastle, better infrastructure, maybe, I don't know, and all those sort of things. Would I take him? Yeah. Now, not my number one choice, but we've seen him in the Premier League. We've seen him what he's done in the cup competitions. I think if you give him the right resources, could do well. Number two, Xabi Alonso. I'm not going to count too much of the Real Madrid time, though he did beat Barcelona. Eddie Howe didn't do that. But look at his time at Leverkusen. I know it's just one season he was at Leverkusen. Now, obviously, still one of the greatest sort of seasons I've ever seen from a club, Leverkusen, that time. Imagine if they actually won that Europa League. Like, I would put them in the conversation as probably the greatest team of all time. Like, top 5, honestly. But I would say that Xabi Alonso and his time with Leverkusen, he took over Leverkusen when they were not that good and shit. 18 months or whatever it was later, unbeaten Bundesliga champions, DFB Pokal champions. And then they gave him a second season. We expected a bit of a drop off. Still finished, I believe he finished second in the league. I know he got knocked out early-ish in the Champions League, but then you also have the other things such as what was the other the DFB Pokal, which they knocked. I think they reached the quarters or semis. I know they lost to Armenia Bielefeld, but still, with the squad and what Leverkusen are, I think Xabi Alonso has done really well. Now, obviously, there's a difference from Leverkusen and Real Madrid. Do I think he's Real Madrid level? Yes, but we know how it's like in Madrid. I would take Xabi Alonso easily. And then my number one, people probably have heard me saying it. I'm not going to repeat it too much. My number one is Julian Nagelsmann. Right now, the Germany national football team. The reason being, look what he's done with Hoffenheim. And then look what he's done with RB Leipzig. Look what he's done with Bayern Munich before they sacked him. And look what happened to Bayern 18 or so months after, in the 18 months after he got sacked unfairly by the board at Bayern. And then look what he's done with Germany. Yes, he didn't win the Euros, but still give Germany probably the best tournament performance since winning the World Cup like 12 years ago, and technically best Nations League finish if people want to count that, finishing fourth despite hosting it. But yeah, Nagelsmann will be my number one. So yeah, in terms of like other news that came about with Newcastle United, I am not entirely sure. Obviously, there's a lot more to talk about. But ahead of the not Crystal Palace, the Bournemouth game, Andoni Iraola's final game at St. James's as Bournemouth manager. Now, I heard he might be linked to Newcastle. In my personal opinion, hasn't really. I would say he needs another job first. It's the same feeling I have with Cesc, in my opinion. But predictions. We haven't beaten Bournemouth in the Premier League since they've been up, which was, 4 years ago? I'll let the streak continue. And just because, you know what, maybe we will demand, I don't know what you want to say, want a better performance over the past month or so. Okay, I'll go for a draw. We might win, but I'll go for a 2-2 draw or 3-3 draw like it was in the FA Cup. But I'll go 2-2, but I wouldn't be surprised if we lose or whatever. As I said, the season for me is done. It's Joe ever. Bend over. It's been over for a while. But yeah, so that's it, guys, for the Magpie Creampie Show. Now, I'll post this link here. Coming up, like literally just as I'm about to finish this, I am doing a preview of Real Sociedad versus Atletico Madrid in the 2026 Copa del Rey final in the El Toro La Liga show. Now I'm doing special episodes. It's just going to be me, but obviously looking ahead to that game and what it would mean for both teams. Obviously, it's just going to be one game preview and prediction of it, with the game being tomorrow, which I will be doing a live watch along for 9 o'clock Spain time. So just readjust to whatever time zone you guys live in. But yeah, that's it for the Magpie Creampie Show. And I will see you guys maybe in about like 5 minutes or something. But yeah, peace, and I'll see you guys very soon. Take care.